All right, gang, we're gonna talk about now how to combine foods. The way that I teach you your meals, be sure this is on, okay, great, is proteins, carbs, and fats. Those are macronutrients, all right? When you have macronutrients, it's very, very essential to understanding nutrition. The reason why I teach you this way is because when you understand what a macronutrient is, you know how to build an appropriate meal. And the way you build an appropriate meal is to have the presence of each of those macros there, a protein, a carb, and a fat. Now, there are going to be times when a protein, a carb, and a fat is not going to always be 3 items on the plate. It doesn't work that simple. All right, sometimes you're going to have, there's some foods that have proteins and fats in them. We'll talk about that. There's some foods that have proteins, carbs, and fats in them. But the key is just to be certain that when you look at your plate, you know that it's approved items, that the meal is 400 calories or less, and that when you look at your plate, you've got the presence of each of those macronutrients. Don't mess this up by getting all vegetables or eating all meat. Balance is the key. Now, I'm going to give you examples of what a protein, a carb, and a fat is, just to give you examples. Examples of good protein sources, all right? You got turkey here, all right, ground chicken. It can be ground turkey, eggs. These are things that I don't recommend you eating often, but they are approved, especially if you're in a tight. Now, this is something that I want you to tell you to stay away from. Thai chili style. If you're going to use something like this, you want plain tuna that's packed in water and does not have the seasonings in them, because that Thai chili style stuff has a lot of sodium, and you want to season your food yourself with your own good, healthy salt that you've been selecting. So these are just examples of protein sources, but do not use these often. And if you get them, be certain that they are plain. Again, do not use these often, and be certain that if you get them, you're not getting the type that have the seasonings. You want them plain, all right? I'm just showing you examples of what protein sources are. Your carbohydrate sources are gonna come all exclusively from fruits and vegetables. We don't eat wheat, we don't eat bread, we don't eat pasta, we don't eat wraps. All of the aforementioned things are carbohydrate sources. But for you and for how we're eating, our carbohydrate sources are exclusively from fruits and vegetables. You got strawberries, you've got kale, it can be collard greens, turnip greens, apples, peppers, etc. So your approved carbs or carbohydrate sources are exclusively coming from approved fruits and vegetables. There are some fruits that are not approved, mangoes, pineapples, watermelons, and we'll get into that. But you guys should have known that if you've read the participants manual. Let's talk about healthy fats. Healthy fats are going to be examples will be avocados, which, believe it or not, are not vegetables. They are fruits. Olive oil, all of your cooking oils, your butter, your ghee, your coconut oil, your olive oil. You have to count that. All right, 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil is probably going to be about 120 calories. You see that? 1 tablespoon. So that means I have to measure it out to where I'm not dousing all of my food and deep frying everything, because the food is going to absorb the fat. So you can't just saute something and not count what you saute it in. Now, if you decide to use cooking spray pan that has 0 calories, have at it. And that's one of the things when you know you have a limited amount of calories, you can't use everything. Another example of healthy fats are going to be your nuts. The nuts will get you in trouble. If you refer back to the video that you've already seen on how to weigh your foods, you have to weigh out everything. And the nuts will get you in more trouble than anything. The reason why, out of all 3 of the sources, the macronutrients, proteins, carbs, and fats are more calorically dense. Per gram, they're 9 calories. When you compare them to carbohydrates and protein per gram, they're 4 calories. Meaning what? You can have a smaller volume of fats, but have twice the calories. So that's why the nuts get people in trouble. Some folks can eat that whole cauldron. Right there, that's enough calories to probably fuel a man for 4 days, okay? And if you're not careful with it, if you're not calculating everything, if you're not measuring everything, and if you're not balancing everything correctly, you're going to find yourself in trouble. That's why I wanted to mix the both videos with how to measure things as well as how to combine things. The only condiments that you're allowed to use is a type of pepper sauce. All right, you see this? This is a sriracha. Anything like this is fine. Okay, look how many calories it has in it. Zero. All right, all the stuff that's in it is not going to set you back. All right, if you want to use like a vinegar pepper sauce that has 0 calories, that's fine. But nothing else, no mayonnaise, no ketchup, no mustard, no liquid aminos, because they're made out of soy. You don't need that. It's not good for us. No condiments. The only condiment you can use is a sriracha like I just showed you, right? Because I know y'all are going to worry the devil out of me. Look at it. That's where I got it from, Sprouts Organic Sriracha. You may not have a Sprouts, but you can see what it is, okay? Get something similar to that. This is not going to set you back, as well as going to add flavor. No mayo, no ketchup, no mustard, none of that. All of those are hidden calories that have fats, highly processed table salt, and sugar, which will mess you up. All right, now the last thing I want to say is every single macronutrient, these are not all your options. Again, these are examples: proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. You vegans, you're going to be selecting your protein from legumes, the beans. But for those of you who are meat eaters, you cannot mix. You can't wake up in the 4-day turn up and say, oh, I feel like being a vegan today, or I feel like being a meat eater. No, whatever you start with, you finish that way. So if you're a meat eater, you can't be dibbling and dabbling in vegan meals. It's not going to work. Likewise, you vegans, you cannot dibble and dabble in meat eating meals. You pick one. We have 2 tracks because there are a lot of people who don't eat meat. There's no such thing for me in terms of a vegetarian. You're either a meat eater or you're not. You're either a vegan or you're not. There are a lot of people who call themselves vegetarians. They eat eggs, they eat dairy, they eat cheese. You might as well eat the chicken. You might as well eat the cow. What's the difference? If I'm gonna eat an egg, why not eat the chicken? It's the same DNA. If I'm gonna drink milk, if I'm gonna eat cheese, why not eat the cow? So you're either a vegan or you're not. You're either a meat eater or you're not. That's how I do it. I'm not saying that other people are wrong. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm not saying anything like that. That's how it is calculated. That's how I assess it, okay? Sometimes your macronutrient options are not going to be solely protein. For example, this is all protein. There's very little to no fat in that. An egg has protein and fat in it. All right, so you have to assess it accordingly. All right, if you get just tuna, that's all protein. Salmon is a fatty fish, so it's going to have protein and fat in it. All right, those are examples. Sometimes when you're getting yogurt, if fat is in the yogurt, that's a protein, a carb, and a fat. You don't want to get caught up and say, oh, I have 1 protein, I have 1 carb, I have 1 fat. Don't get caught up on that. You may have multiple proteins. You may have multiple carbs. You may have like a yogurt that has fresh fruit atop of it, and it already has carbohydrates in it and maybe a half a serving of nuts. That's the key. You got to combine your meal like you want it, knowing the parameters of how much I can use and the types of foods that I need to use. All right, all of these are very, very important. All right. And I hope this helps. And we're back.